Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of PodPaca. Today, we are with the Waupaca Historical Society Director, Tracy Behrendt. Welcome, Tracy, to PodPaca.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Hey Tracy, how you doing?
Hi, Tim. I'm good. Sounds
Good.
like you guys are doing well today.
Yeah.
How did you become the Waupaca Historical Society Director?
I've been director just about 7 years now. And when my husband and I moved to Waupaca in 2010, my background is museum work. So I was already looking for the local historical society to get involved in some way. And when we first were looking at this area to move, I had contacted the historical society and the director at the time, Julie Hintz, and had asked if there was a way to get a tour. And our vice president now on our board, Mike Kirk, he gave us the tour at the depot and just had such enthusiasm for Waupaca history and the area and the organization. And so once we found out we were going to move to Waupaca, I knew I would be involved with the Historical Society. So we moved in June. In September of that year, I got elected to the board. So I served on the board, and my main interest is collections and exhibits. And so I helped the director at the time, Julie. I helped her with collections and creating policies and doing cataloging of all the artifacts and things. I really enjoyed that. So I got involved that way. And then Julie retired. And at the time I was working at the library. I worked in the children's department, and then I did the exhibit room downstairs, and was just hoping eventually something in the museum field would pop up, but the library was a great fit for me. And but then Julie retired, and it just worked out perfectly that I interviewed for the job and was hired, and I started in December. Come this December, I will be here 7 years. So I started in 2015
Wow.
as the director.
No, I always thought you got your position through bribes and intimidation techniques. But,
No, I didn't actually. It actually is my experience, Tim.
okay.
And it was such a good fit. And in Wisconsin, it's not always easy to find jobs in museums in small towns like this. So I was so excited when the opportunity arose to be the director here, and I've really enjoyed it ever since. So
How did you come to Waupaca, and where were you before Waupaca?
I grew up outside of Milwaukee in Cedarburg, and met my husband Andy when we were at UW Green Bay in college. And then I went to grad school for museum work in Milwaukee, and he was working. And at about that time, then he decided he wanted to go to seminary. So we moved to St. Paul, Minnesota, and we lived there for 4 years while he was in school, and I was working in two different museums I worked at that point. And then in your final year of seminary, they kind of place you give them suggestions as to where you'd like to go. And our initial thought was to go somewhere near my hometown because I might find a museum job a little easier near Milwaukee. But we ended up in Waupaca, which actually is great for us because we're kind of in the middle between my parents and his parents. And we immediately loved the area. So that's how so Andy got the call to Trinity Lutheran in Waupaca, and we moved here. And yeah, we've been here 12 years, and we couldn't imagine being in a better place. It just is such a good fit. The community, we both grew up in bigger towns. Cedarburg is a little bit more this size. It's bigger than Waupaca, but not as big as Green Bay, where Andy grew up. But it's a great fit. So we came directly here from St. Paul, Minnesota, which we loved living in the Twin Cities too. The museums there. I had the opportunity to work at the Minnesota Historical Society. So that was great experience. And yeah, but this community is just a fantastic fit for us and for our family now that we have two kids. We couldn't imagine being anywhere else.
Isn't it kind of rare for a pastor to be in one spot? I mean, I know Andy's went through the moved up. Now I know he's the head pastor, but isn't that a rare occurrence? Don't they only stay a little while and then get called away before they find kind of a forever church or something?
Yeah, I would say that nowadays it's less likely. I feel his dad, my father-in-law, was also a pastor. He's retired now. And yeah, it very much, you stayed with churches longer, maybe not in those early years either, which is kind of rare for us that the first church we were placed at has just been such a great fit for us. Yeah, so I mean, he started as the associate pastor, and now he's the senior pastor. And yeah, we just love the community, and I think the congregation was a good fit. It was great that I could find the job at the Historical Society too, and not have to worry about commuting, say if I got a job in Stevens Point or Appleton. But yeah, it is becoming more rare for a pastor to stay with a church that long, especially in your first call or your first
Mhm.
placement in a church. So
Yeah. Well, yeah, I mean, it seems to have worked out. So
yeah, it definitely has.
the Historical Society, though, you said you've been there, you've been in the director position 7 years?
Hmm. Yep, I
Wow.
have. Yeah,
Wow.
that time it's certainly flown by, and the organization itself has grown so much, and my job itself has grown so much. But yeah, it's just a great job, and I'm
Yeah.
definitely passionate about history, so, and local history especially. So it's a great fit.
I know you got a really cool event getting ready to come up.
Yuletide Trail, we've been planning since, well, September. We've been planning that. And while we're a part of that event with the Historical Society, it is an event of the Waupaca Area Arts and Culture Network. And that was a network formed about 5 years ago of all arts and cultural organizations in the Waupaca area. So it
Okay.
includes Winchester Academy, includes the library, includes the Arts Board, includes Fine Arts Festival. I mean, there's just a long list of groups that we're all involved with, that network. And for Yuletide Trail, we take a bigger role, the Historical Society does, because we sell the cookie tins, and that's a fundraiser for us. And then we have the cookie walk during the Yuletide Trail. So we take a bigger role with that event, but it's definitely a network event. It wouldn't be able to occur without all of us having a hand in it.
I mean, I know it's a great event. People around here just absolutely love it. And that started in 2019, didn't it? Wasn't that the first year, or 28?
Yes, because this year will be our 4th year. So we had one, we had one normal year, and
Yeah.
then we had 2020 when we didn't do too much, and the cookie tins were actually just things we had prepackaged everything. So everything that we were putting in that cookie tin, we did ahead of time, and so the shopping wasn't as big of a piece. We didn't have events downtown, and then last year we were able to really start getting back into it again. And then now this year we're fully back, just like we were in 2019, and everything's in person, and we're excited to be out on December 3rd in the community.
This is where you have all the participants, the shop owners, whatnot, or business owners actually make the cookies, don't they? And you
Yeah,
go
so
and you get a cookie to help fill your tin as you go along your way. Is that pretty
yeah,
much it?
exactly. Yeah. So yeah, you purchase the cookie tin, and it's $20. It's a fundraiser for the Historical Society. And then on the day of December 3rd from 10 to 4, we have a map inside the tins, and then you follow the map and you pick up a cookie at each of one of those stops. We are so happy to partner with the businesses because they all supply the cookies themselves.
Mhm.
And so at each stop, it's a different type of cookie. The fun part too is that a lot of those businesses use local businesses to make their cookies. So it really is impacting all of those local businesses in the Waupaca area. And so yeah, you just stop at all 20 stops. And by the time you're done, then you've got a full cookie tin to take home and all sorts of fun treats to sample.
Whose brainchild was this?
The Yuletide Trail, it was the network's idea. We started meeting, and I know here at the Historical Society, we were getting people coming in, especially because I was new to the job and I was new-ish to the community. People would mention, Waupaca used to have this great Christmas parade, and they used to do things for Christmas, and they'd mention it to me, and it just kind of got the wheels turning, and we started talking about it at the network. Was there a way that our network, all of us organizations, could work together and do a Christmas event? Because there was no way the Historical Society could do it on our own. And there's no way that just one organization could do it. But if we all did it together, maybe we could bring it back. So we started talking about it. And then in 2019 was the first year we decided to do that. And we had so many different partners. Danes Hall was involved, local businesses, just all of us kind of coming together, trying to figure out how to put an event together. And then I think at one of the meetings, Terry Schultz, I think from the chamber, had mentioned that she had heard of another community doing a cookie walk at some point. And so then I just kind of ran with that and found a place that made tins and could print pictures on the front. So each year we have a photo from our collection on the tin itself. And so we just kind of ran with it. And then working with Waupaca King and In Between, we could partner with the businesses, and the number of cookie stops has grown since that first year. I think the first year we had maybe 15. I might have been even 12, but it's just grown because I think the businesses have seen too what a great kind of source of advertising it is too. People have to go into the store to get the cookies, so they already stop in. And then also included in the tin is a coupon book that people can use throughout the Christmas season, so they can hopefully come back and use that coupon and buy some Christmas gifts from those local businesses. So it's a great opportunity for all of us to partner. But yeah, I kind of think it was all of us working together. All of us had the idea to do an event, and it just so happened that a holiday event just really kind of sparked all of our creative energies, and we could kind of work together on making this. And every year it seems like we're adding something new to it. So it's not the same event every single year. There's always something new added.
As far as the historical society goes as well, I don't know if you find this to be true, but to me, there seems to be a misconception that it's just the Holly Center. But
Yeah.
you've got the Hutchinson House and Depot and the King, or what do they call it, the King Cottage?
The King Cottage. Yep. Hmm.
It's a number of things, and
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, when I started at the Historical Society as director, and I don't even know if when I started on the board, if I was completely familiar with the fact that we had 4 buildings and 3 sites. But as director, that's been one of my big pushes too, is that really making people understand, yes, the Holly Center is our main building. And a lot of people know the building because it's the old library. And it's a Carnegie library, so people know it. And it's the most probably recognizable outside of the Hutchinson House, which sits in South Park. A lot of people see that one. So yeah, and the Hutchinson House actually was our first building, and we moved that over to this park in 1955, and it opened in 57. So that's been our first building, and then the King Cottage was second, and then here at the Holly Center was third, and then the Depot we purchased in 2014, or I'm sorry, 2004. So I mean, all those pieces combined to make the Historical Society, but I don't think, yeah, I agree. I don't think everybody knows that we are beyond the Holly Center sometimes, or sometimes they just think certain buildings are different parts or different organizations. So South Park, or the city, runs the Hutchinson House because it's in the park. The Depot is its own thing because for so many years it was just this depot sitting there kind of falling apart, and we took it on and have restored it thanks to Mike Kirk, who I mentioned before, and a lot of volunteer work. But yeah, I think that's one of our biggest things, is to try to make people understand we have more than just the one building. And this year we added new signs in front of all of our buildings, so hopefully that'll show people that these signs all look the same. They're all part of one organization, but they all tell a different story of Waupaca's history too.
Yeah, the signs look terrific, by the way. Good job.
Thank you. Yeah, they've been a great addition, and we've had comments. People are starting to realize that those buildings belong to us, so that's exciting for us.
Yeah, I want to touch base a little bit. I mean, like you said, people are familiar with the Holly Center and all that, and everyone talks about the old, I think it was a Carnegie restaurant, which in reality I think wasn't even open 2 years.
Yeah, it was not open long, no.
And the depot's self-explanatory, I think. What its use was for. The Hutchinson House, however, I don't think very many people realize. I can't remember the lady's first name. We'll just go with Mrs. Hutchinson, I guess.
Oh, yeah, well, Julia Hutchinson is the most famous of the Hutchinsons. Yeah.
Yeah, and I do believe she was very, very, very much a champion for prohibition.
She actually, yeah. So she was part of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, and she was very adamant about no alcohol, family values. Yeah, and she was actually very active with the WCTU, the Waupaca chapter, and then also the state. Yeah, so she was an important person in that realm, and in trying to keep prohibition alive here in the state. Obviously, didn't work out, but
well, it was destined to fail.
Yeah,
I personally think, but at the time, yeah, I mean, she was a major driving force, spoke in Washington and all that. But the reason I want to bring that up is so people understand the relevance of the Hutchinson House.
Yeah.
When I first came here and I saw, the Hutchinson House, well, what the hell does that mean? So I think if you, I don't know, now that I know a little bit more about the people that it was named after,
Yeah.
it's a lot more fascinating. So,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, like a lot of historic homes in small towns in Wisconsin, they are a white family from the East Coast that's moved over, and that's kind of who the Hutchinsons were. They came from the East and moved to Waupaca in the early years. First settlement, because the first white settlement was in 1849. The Hutchinson house was built in 1854. So not long after those first white settlers came, the Hutchinson family built it. They farmed. They were typical settlers, white settlers in Wisconsin. The house has seen a lot of history. It had the first double wedding here in Waupaca in the house. And it's got other connections. The Hutchinson family ended up marrying into other prominent families in Waupaca. So it's got an interesting story. And then the Hutchinson family actually sold the house, but years later, one of the sons purchased it back. And so then it went back into the Hutchinson family. And then, like you said, Julia lived in it then with her uncle until her uncle died. And then she lived in it until she died. And then it was owned for a little while by some other people. And then that's when they were going to tear it down. And then the Historical Society had just been formed in 1953. And in 1954, the plan was to tear down that house. And it used to sit kitty corner from the Quick Trip on Fulton Street, where I think it's Bill's Auto Garage is today.
oh, really?
And
I didn't know.
yeah, so that's where it sat. And the plan was to tear the house down. An oil company had bought it. And they were going to tear down the house and build kind of what's there today, a service station and gas company. And so that was the plan. And then the Historical Society stepped in and they saved the building. There was enough interest to save that building. It's one of the oldest homes in Waupaca. The wood, the lumber on that, as far as we know, the best information we have is that sawed wood, the siding on the house is from the first sawmill in Waupaca. So there's lots of great history attached to the house. So the Historical Society saved it, got the land from the city in the park and moved it to the park, and it's sat there ever since. And then it opened in 1957 for Waupaca's city centennial. So that was kind of its big thing. And they only, as far as I understand, they only had 2 rooms open at that time. They only had enough furniture to kind of set up 2 rooms in that house. And then through the years, then a lot of early settler families have donated furniture and things to the house that's now displayed there. And now every room in the house, outside of a couple closets, is open for display.
No, it's just, I just think that's pretty cool. I honestly, I just kind of think sometimes there needs to be more information like that out there. Maybe occasionally maybe the paper could just give a brief history of some of the locations or even some of the other houses.
Yes.
There's beautiful old houses that were owned by like the paper barons and stuff like that. And
yeah,
some ones in the chain too. There's a few of them out there that are absolutely amazing. They haven't really been touched. They look very outdated, but that's because they were built 120 years ago. So
right. Well, that's one of the things I love about Waupaca is that there is so much history, and it's just interesting, fascinating history. Like you said, on Lake Street and Main Street, there's so many older homes that have a lot of history and ties to different industry and different people here in Waupaca. The chain of lakes is interesting just because of the tourist aspect, and how much that's changed over the years now, from the time of having these small cottages to now today having these large year-round homes out there. It's a very different.
Large is an understatement.
Yeah.
You only have so much of a patch you can build in. So people have gone straight up. And some of these places are massive. Is it true we do indeed have the Psycho House in town?
I wish I could say for sure that is like 100% true. We have not been able to prove that. However, it's a fun story, and the house that sits kitty corner from the Holly Center, so I can see it right out the window right now. Supposedly, it was that house or a home in Waupaca that was the inspiration for Alfred Hitchcock's film producer or director when they were driving around this area to look for inspiration. And preface that by saying the man who wrote the book that screenplay is based off of was from Waupaca. So that's why there's that connection to our area. But supposedly the film director or whoever was doing the filming on Psycho came and drove around here to kind of get some inspiration. And supposedly it's between that house across the street here or one in Waupaca. And I couldn't tell you which one it is off the top of my head, but supposedly those are the inspirations for the house that's in the movie. I would love to say that it's ours, because if you go ahead and watch the movie and see the house and then drive over here on South Main Street and check this one out, it has its similarities. So I like to think that, they took some creative license but were inspired by the house in Waupaca. So.
Oh, definitely, for sure. And also, is it true that the motel that Psycho is based on was based off an old Waupaca motel that is now torn down and there's only the sign left?
Interesting. No, I did not know. I've
That's
heard.
probably more likely.
Yes,
I was just wondering if that was true.
I cannot say it's true, but that would be a fun question for the Waupaca Historical Society and to ask. I'm sure they get that question, but because we get the question about the house a lot, because people do hear about that. But I don't know about the hotel, so I'll have to dig more into that and find out.
Well, on top of that too, for the folks out there who may not be familiar with the area, Waupaca is another nice little town like Waupaca. What would you say, maybe 20 minutes from here?
Oh yeah, not even. Yeah.
Well,
yeah. 10, 15.
That's what we're talking about. We're pretty close in relation, so.
We are, yeah, definitely smaller than Waupaca, and Waupaca has more amenities and things, but a nice little town, and certainly has its interesting history as well.
Well, we also, talking about Psycho a little bit, the person Psycho was based on, Ed Gein, I do believe he was part of the profile for the character in Psycho anyway. Yeah, he was from Plainfield, Wisconsin, which is
not far.
No, maybe 40 minutes, something like that.
Yeah. So. Yeah. And we do get that question too, because people think that Ed Gein was from here. But yeah, no, definitely Plainfield.
We have no responsibility for Ed Gein or Dahmer. Dahmer was Milwaukee, not here.
Absolutely not.
Yeah,
absolutely not.
Can you talk about the upcoming event that you have at the Historical Society and what you do each month with that event at the Historical Society?
Sure. So we probably started doing our monthly programs about 5 years ago or so, maybe a little longer than that. So we have a program each month. Next year, it'll be a program or an event, just because we're growing and we've been starting to do more events too. So, and I'm the only staff member, and with the pandemic too, it's been harder to get volunteers. So we're going to dedicate our efforts to one thing every month, so a program or an event. But yeah, we do monthly programs. We have presenters come in. Sometimes they're local. Sometimes they come from further distances. This month, our speaker is coming from near Green Bay. And Lewis Clark, he is an Oneida Indian, and he is going to be speaking about his life growing up on the reservation in Green Bay and just kind of how that has affected just his childhood and going into adulthood here. And his program is called How to Be an Indian in the 21st Century. So we're really looking forward to having him. He's published 2 books and with the Wisconsin Historical Society. And one of them is poetry. And so the program should be really great. And just from the email correspondence I've had with him, he seems like he'll be a really great speaker, really enthusiastic, and just really great at storytelling. So I think it'll be a really neat program. So that program's on Thursday, November 10th at 6 p.m. And we typically hold all of our programs at the Holly Center here.
I wonder if his parents, I wonder if this was like a clever naming after the explorers.
Yeah, and it's Louis, Louis. So yeah, I have to catch myself when I type it out to make sure I don't spell it the other way. But yeah, I'm not even sure. So I'm really curious to meet him and learn more about his growing up, and also his parents. I don't know how long his family goes back on the reservation too. So it'll be really an interesting program from him.
What do you look for in a guest speaker for those events?
Well, every year we meet and we kind of discuss what types of programs we're looking for. So we just met a couple months ago for our 2023 programs. And we basically have those set now. So programs that we're doing next year range from we're having a program about the history of the Waupaca boundary. We're having a program, we're going to do an automobile history program, probably about Nash cars. They were sold here in Waupaca and actually built in Wisconsin. That'll be in July because we're going to be doing a car show with the library. So sometimes it has to do with what event or what partnership we're working on. We partner a lot with the library. We've partnered with Winchester Academy. So that kind of sometimes steers us in certain directions. Sometimes it's topics that we're interested in. We definitely are making an effort to include more American Indian programs in our coming years. So we're hoping next year to have a program on Menominee forestry. So we're looking into that. Another program that I'm excited about next year is we've had a lot of people asking us, new residents that come to Waupaca, they'll ask us about things that are just, buildings or things people say about Waupaca that they just don't understand. And unless you've lived here for at least, a few years, sometimes you don't know the history, the background on stuff.
What do you mean about Waupaca that they don't understand?
Like what certain buildings were. People will talk about, like the Cherney building. And they're like, well, where was Cherney? And it's where the, no, I can't even remember, the food places now, Ruby's Pantry, where they are now. So it's little things like that. So we're focusing on the historical part of it. So we're going to be doing a program in October in conjunction with a library exhibit we're helping with. And we're going to do kind of like a Waupaca 101 type class or program. And we'll do that with the library. So talk about just what about the buildings downtown? What is this courthouse that people talk about that used to be on Courthouse Square downtown? Or what's with the bandstand? Just little things like that, just to tell that history. People hear rumblings that we were the potato capital of the world. So telling a little bit about that history, because that's true. So so we've had questions that people, they move here and there's just quirky things that they hear about Waupaca and they just don't know what's behind that. So that was kind of the impetus of that program. And we'll put that on in October next year. So when we come up with program ideas, it's kind of people telling us what they want. It's kind of things that we've heard. Maybe there's a new book that came out and this author would be a great person to bring in. Maybe it's things that we're really trying to get programs about, like American Indian history. This area, so often we focus on the white history. White settlement kind of marks our history. And then we move from that, from 1849 to present. And we really are making an effort to highlight the Menominee who lived here and also other American Indian tribes in the state and talk about their history and their part in being on the land that we now live on and how important that is to recognize. So it's kind of a combination of things throughout the year. And we do, like I said, we have 2023 plans. So we do that pretty early so we can start advertising and putting that up on our website and Facebook and all that.
Okay. Yeah, and the spirit of the holiday season too. Maybe you could enlighten us on the event they had when they were throwing turkeys out the window.
The turkey trot.
Yeah, hopefully, hope to God they weren't frozen.
No, they weren't. But the first year they were alive, which is just funny.
The first year they did it more than 1 year.
Oh, they did. Okay. So so if anyone's interested, if you go on Facebook and search for the turkey trot, I did do a post a couple years ago and there's some fantastic photos from that. There's a couple pictures of someone holding a turkey on the top of one of the buildings downtown, like over the edge, ready to drop. And it was alive. And so they did that the first year and then discovered that didn't end well.
Yeah. It's like they didn't think that through, did they?
No. I don't know if they were thinking like the turkeys would just like slowly fly down or what.
Someone forgot that the only turkeys that can fly are wild ones.
Yeah, right.
I mean, the others can't fly. They just kind of fall.
And that's kind of what happened. Yeah. So that happened the first year. And then the second year they got wise and they decided that instead we'll just give turkeys away. So that's what they did. So people would, try to be downtown, and then they'd select people to bring these turkeys home. And businesses, it's kind of like Yuletide Trail in a way, where businesses were involved. They would have fun displays, and they would have free things and specials. And so it was a community event, but the first year, not well thought out.
No. I mean, how many people got injured? There had to have been quite a few.
You would think either they were injured or just traumatized from those turkeys falling off the buildings. And I mean, small children. I've seen the pictures. There were like crowds around the building, so it just wasn't a good idea. So, but it is a fun part of history.
What year was this?
If I remember right, it was in the early to mid 1920s, because I think the picture that we have of the guy holding the turkey over the edge is from either 24 or 25. So yeah, just crazy, just not well thought out. And
it would be like, doing the cookie walk and setting, to make it a little extra fun and challenging, setting bear traps all over the place. Oh,
I know it. It's just, I don't know who came up with the idea, but it lives in infamy now. So.
Oh, wow. Well, it's like that episode on WKRP, if anybody remembers.
Yeah.
Well, what I like, they're throwing live turkeys out the helicopter.
Yes,
I think it was. And the announcer was on the ground doing his whole thing. It sounded a lot like the Hindenburg announcer doing his, oh, humanity. Turkeys fly. Oh, man.
Yeah. When I first posted that picture, that was by far the number one comment was, remember that episode when, and so that it was very reminiscent of that. Perhaps they were inspired by Waupaca's turkey trot.
I would say that's where they got the idea.
I'm sure we weren't the only community have tried this, because I can't think that Waupaca made it up. Maybe we did, but I have to think that there were other communities doing this, though you would think that once one community did it, they'd realize how bad of an idea that was. But
well, thank God it wasn't like, bowling ball or boulder day or something.
Exactly. Or curling stone, like curling's popular. Drop a curling.
Here, catch this. Free curling stone if you can catch it.
Yeah.
Well, if it was in 1924 or 25, that means the 100th anniversary is coming up. We might have to do it again.
Perfect. We might have to resurrect it. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm sure the city would be well on board with that. No liability at all.
Yeah, no issue
about that.
Yeah. Poor Aaron.
Yeah. People are going to be calling with ideas. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh man.
I don't think he's going to take your call about the turkey trot. So
no, I doubt it. We did have, what happened to the event we had here involving the potatoes? That lasted a couple of years, and they turned the whole town into a mini golf course.
Right. Yeah. So
awesome.
Yeah, the potato bake, it was a great event. So Waupaca was the potato capital of the world for like late 1890s to 1910s or so. And the rest of the country and even the world set their potato prices according to the prices here in Waupaca. And so Waupaca was known for its good potatoes. And it's hard to believe that our little town was the potato capital, but they were very proud of it. So they had this potato bake, and they had banners streamed across Main Street. And yeah, you're right. They had, so this is, I should preface this by saying this is the one that was done 100 years ago. We did have a potato event. That was probably 8 years ago when we did the potato mini golf and all that stuff downtown to kind of
that was more recent than that.
I don't know. I feel like it was quite a while ago.
Yeah, it was probably like 7 years ago.
Was it that long? Okay.
So, but Waupaca had this potato bake. Oh, it was number of years they did it. Shut down the downtown basically. They had different events, kind of like almost like a fair too, where people would submit their produce to be measured and win prizes and for how big and how heavy. And then they had like a run. They had all sorts of different events, and they celebrated that potato. And then in the 1910s, 1920s, then the potato, a combination of things in our area with pests and then not rotating fields and stuff. And then the dairy industry took off. So, but people who live here in Waupaca know that there are still plenty of potato farms in our area, in our region. Not always here closer to Waupaca, but outside our area a little bit more, there's still potato farms. So
Nothing crazy went on at those festivals, did they, with potato guns or anything?
no, I'm sure there were lots of shenanigans, but they could have been throwing potatoes off buildings too, or yeah, who knows? But it's just it's fun to look back at that, and yeah, it's definitely a neat piece of Waupaca history that's pretty unique. The Historical Society has a brat fry.
Yeah, I've lived here long enough. I just love brats. Growing up, I never even heard of them. I moved here and it was like, oh, what a nice treat.
Yeah, I have a good friend that lives in Kansas City, and she thinks it's the funniest thing that we have brat fries, that we have a specific event after a piece of meat. It's just, yeah. So it is amazing. But for us, it's a great fundraiser. We've been able to raise quite a bit of money for our programs, because our programs are all free. So we've been able to raise money toward that and toward preserving our collections. And then now, since we launched our capital campaign, that money can go toward that as well.
Yeah, we like to celebrate our beer and our meat here. That's for sure.
We do. Yeah, unfortunately, we don't have beef, but we have brats.
Well, I know. I mean, well, like beefarama in Minocqua is just, that's just amazing.
Yep.
Yeah, it's something so simple and everyone's just there to have a good time, and yeah. I mean, yeah, the brat fries, well, the ones for the Historical Society are starting to become actually legendary.
Yeah, people kind of know when we're going to have them on their calendars. So when we're not out there, people are kind of upset. So we do try to have quite a few. I mean, the Historical Society, we do a few, but it's really the Genealogical Society that puts a lot of those on. And that's all volunteer run, which is just amazing. So Nancy and Jeff Wiesner were on our board, and also help with WAGS. Nancy's the president of the Genealogical Society, WAGS, and they do all that. So it's just a neat thing, and it's a great fundraiser for them.
I've been very impressed with like you said, some of the volunteers, such as Jeff and Nancy, and of course Mike at the depot. All he does is just incredible.
Yeah. I joke that we should really just like put a bed in the depot and build him a little room in there, because he's just, without Mike, that building would have never been saved, first of all. And
it wouldn't be anything like it is now. It probably wouldn't even, like you said, it may not even be there now.
I don't think so either. Yeah. If you've seen the pictures of what it looked into like in 2004 when we bought it, hole in the floor of the main room when you walk in, because there had been a campfire in there. The shingles were broken off on the top of their clay tile. People would just throw rocks up there and break them. Windows broken, just graffiti everywhere, just a dump. Mm-hmm. And the railroad really kind of just wanted to tear it down, because it had, when we first started conversations with the railroad, there was another railroad that owned it. And then in 2014, Canadian National bought it. And that was our key. That was the relationship that helped us purchase it and keep it at its location, because they did want us to move it originally. But when Canadian National purchased the railroad line, they let us keep it there as long as we put that chain link fence up, which is a good deal for us. And it's so cool to be at the depot, first of all, but then when you're outside watching those trains go by and you're within like 10, 15 feet from these trains and they're whizzing by, it's just pretty amazing. And once you start to learn too what types of things are coming past the depot, and the fact that that railroad line is part of intermodal transportation. So the stuff that's on that train has come off ships in the ocean, from other countries, and it's coming through Little Waupaca to other locations. It's just pretty amazing. So it's neat for us not only to have saved that building, and Mike Kirk is fully responsible for that, but also to be able to tell that story of Waupaca's piece in railroad history, and also, transportation now.
I want to touch a little more about the depot, because maybe mention the rail cam.
Oh yeah. Yeah, we have, that's been fantastic for us. So that's been, I think, 4 years since we got the virtual rail fan cameras. So we have 2 cameras on the depot, and one of them faces west, one of them faces east. And it's you can watch the trains go by. So at the depot, we have about 25 to 30 trains that go by a day. And there are so many train enthusiasts, not only that visit us at the depot, but then now can go online and watch these trains live. And there's a chat function on this. So Virtual Railfan is kind of the company that that we work with for our cameras, and then they put the video through YouTube for free. And pretty amazingly, I don't recall how many cameras Virtual Railfan operates throughout the country. I think it's 87, if I remember right. And obviously Waupaca is one of the smaller towns that has a camera, because some of these cameras are in big cities where they have a lot of different trains going by and people like to watch that. But even though we are a small town and obviously a smaller community and railroad community too, we are in the top third of viewed cameras in the country. And so it's just amazing. And since we launched those cameras, we've had over 2 million views of our feeds. So it's just amazing to see how many people are watching it, and just the comments, and people know what it's carrying. And I think the favorite part of the day too for train enthusiasts is when the train comes and backs into the foundry, because the foundry does get they get deliveries, and then they also send stuff out. So you can watch that right from the cameras. So if you go to Virtual Railfan and you type in Waupaca, then you can find it. Otherwise, if you go to our website and you go to the depot on the top of our website, then we've got the links to the cameras, and you can just watch them from home. So especially during the pandemic, that was a great way for people to still see the train, see the depot a little bit from the comfort of their home. So it's been great. And then every year, since we've started those cameras, we've gotten a grant from the Chamber of Commerce here, or I should say the Visitors Bureau. And that's helped us fund the internet to keep that going, because we need a pretty high speed out there at the depot for that. So we've been able to keep it going for 4 years, and hopefully it'll last even longer than that. So it's just a great way to tell people about Waupaca and the depot too.
I was wanting to know more about you, Tracy, that wasn't historical society related. I wanted to know more about you as a mom. How do you enjoy being a mom? And also, it does seem like there are quite a bit of differences of how children are being raised, especially in this new technology era, compared to even when I was a kid. So I want to know what struggles, or maybe it's a lot better with all this technology for you as a mom. I wanted to know what you thought of all that.
Yeah, so my 2 boys are 10 and 8. And we realized, talking about the pandemic, that our youngest, who's in 3rd grade, this year is his first normal year in school since 4K. So every other year of his schooling has been impacted by a pandemic, whether kindergarten, it was cut short, 1st and 2nd grade, it was still masking, or different protocols and stuff at school. So this year, and you can still say there's things that are different and that have changed now since he was in 4K. But for the most part, this is his first normal year for him ever at the Waupaca Learning Center. So I love being a mom. And when I was little, I have a younger sister, and I always wanted a brother, because I'm into baseball, I'm into sports. I was the kid that climbed trees. I'm more that girl. My sister was not. So I just, having a brother would have been awesome, and so now I have 2 boys, and they, for the most part, like that stuff too. So that's good. I'm still trying to get them hooked on the Milwaukee Brewers, which isn't always successful, but maybe as they get older. But so it is hard. My husband, Andy, is more technologically savvy. It's just, you start to realize too, when a pandemic happens, how much you don't know in terms of technology and how much you have to learn. I struggle with that because I didn't grow up with technology. I didn't have a cell phone until I was in college. And I very much had parents that we didn't watch a lot of TV. We were expected to be outside during the summer. Whereas Andy, my husband, grew up very, very much more attached to technology, more interested in computers, more interested, watch TV a lot, all that stuff. So it happens that you have differing parenting views when it comes to technology. And I am not crazy about the technology. And I would be very happy if they didn't have a tablet at home. And, I played video games as a kid, so I do like some of that, but it's hard. It's hard finding that balance because now, especially in school, they do so much on their Chromebooks and so much based on computers. So it is important for them to know, but it's finding that balance. And with the pandemic, that threw everything out of whack. I mean, you're stuck at home. You have no way to communicate with people outside of your technology. So you just kind of get used to that. And so that's kind of a struggle too, is kind of going back to where we were, in 2018, 2019. And also my kids were younger. That stuff wasn't as important. Now, especially my oldest, at 10 years old, he's just so interested in that stuff. The video games, the YouTube, just everything. So it's hard to find that balance, and you try your best. And I think as a parent, you always feel like you could do better, but the good thing is the kids are forgiving in that way. And I think you just do your best with all that. And the schools are so fantastic. And what they've gone through in the last 3 years is with teachers trying to learn that technology too. And then also encourage kids to learn it in a positive way also and use it properly. I mean, those kids have come so far in those 3 years. And but in our house, we really try to get them outside reading books. We're a big reading family. I mean, just trying to find that balance is not always easy. But it is fun. But it's so different than from when I was a kid. And Joe, you're right. It's changed in that amount of time too, since you were a kid. It's just, I think with technology, things change so fast that compared to the way it was when I was younger, it just seems like every few months there's something new. In fact, now we have a machine at home that we can just talk to and it'll turn the channel on our TV, which to me is weird. And also feels like I'm being somewhat lazy. Like I should just at least use the remote control. But just things like that, turns on our lights, does all this stuff. And my husband loves it. And I'm still not sure. Maybe that's why I'm in the history field, because I'm old fashioned in that way. I like the old fashioned stuff. I don't mind having to get up and, change the channel, turn on the lights and all that. So
if I did see a study that a lot of elementary school and middle school age kids, at least 70% their dream job is to be a content creator of some kind.
yes.
Are your kids in that 70% that would be like, oh, I want to be on YouTube or TikTok or streaming?
Yes. Yes. It was like a YouTube personality for a while. My youngest wants to be a video game creator because he's totally into Nintendo. But then it'll be things like a Lego engineer or, a Lego creator. So it wavers, but yeah, I would say with kids that age, 10 and 8, elementary, middle school, that technology is such a big piece of their life. And now you think about the kind of formative years, we're stuck in the pandemic, and so much of that, we were at home, they're learning new video games, they're doing stuff, they're having to do all their schoolwork on computers. So yes, definitely. And I know for a fact their friends are that way too, because they'll talk about it, that, oh, we're going to make millions of dollars being a YouTube personality. And they see all these likes on whatever YouTube person they follow. And they're like, oh, look at all these likes. It must be so easy. And, they'll understand if they get.
It's not.
It's absolutely not. So I'm trying to ground them in some reality that think about a job that actually may be around in 15 years, or 20, because you just don't know. I think, that some of that stuff will be around, but I think it's going to look different. And it's good to have some backup ideas.
I think maybe a misconception with the younger people is that they look on there and they see somebody that's got 200 million followers or whatever, like Mr. Beast. Mm-hmm. But they think, oh, that's great, I could really make it big or whatever. But what they're not realizing, it's not like Mr. Beast showed up one day and had all those followers. That I actually had to put the creativity and the time in. And I bring him up because he's one of the top people, I believe, on YouTube.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I look at some of these others and, oh, okay, they've got, say, 20 million views or something, but it's also been up for 12 years.
Right.
I
Right.
mean,
Well, I don't think also they don't understand the work that goes into it. And you guys know from doing a podcast, but that background work that's going on, in terms of editing video, getting it just right. Like, so they watch, the big thing now is to watch someone else play a video game, which is just really ridiculous to me. But so they'll sit and watch someone else play the video game, and they're like, oh, he has a new video, and wow, he could put up lots of videos every day. And I'm thinking to myself, you got to get it just right, and you got to, edit it just certain ways. And what happens if your kids don't comes in, and there's just all this stuff, or if your technology is not working that day, and I think for kids too, they think some of that is very easy. I think that comes from them being so comfortable with technology. It
yeah,
just seems they can figure it out. It's fine, but
yeah,
things don't
Joe
always
took him
work.
like 2 years. I mean, to kind of get it figured out, and he just picked the direction he wanted to go. And I
Right.
mean, he spends a huge amount of time just scheduling people, editing. I don't do any of that. I'm just here because I'm kind of the pretty face and stuff.
That's
So
true, Tim. Yeah.
um, he wanted to kind of, he wanted somebody, I guess, more sexy. So that's why I'm here. So
You would have been at the top of his list, I'm sure. Yes. Yeah.
to help bring in certain specific viewers, but
Right.
I
Yeah, you have a
appreciate it.
following, Tim.
I
I get it.
completely
I get it.
understand it. I sacrificed and did it. So
It's very kind of you. Yes, someday Joe. I mean, I don't know how Joe's going to repay you, but maybe someday. Yeah.
Just another quick note that Mr. Beast's company is now worth $1.4 billion.
Don't tell my kids.
Billion with a B. With a
Yeah.
B.
Yeah. Currently, they are like kind of obsessively crazy about learning about Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, because they just can't fathom that someone has that much money and what they would do with all of that. So, I mean, it's like that's the thing with like technology, is now it's so easy for them to learn things. Like, I feel like they'll ask me questions. I'm like, I don't know. And I go, look it up. I'm like, why? I don't want to know how much Elon Musk is worth. I don't care, But yeah, I know. And so kids see that $1.4 billion and think, I could do that, right?
Yeah, and it's really only him, because a lot, like 95% of people that are doing content creation, if they even get to any kind of success and get to that first, let's say, $1 million made, they got $1 million.
Right.
They're gonna stop. They're not gonna keep going like Mr. Beast has done, because he now has a burger chain, a chocolate bar company,
Oh my
and
gosh.
all these different things. He's like the largest virtual restaurant chain.
Wow.
He's like the McDonald's of virtual restaurants.
That's crazy.
And that's why his company's worth so much more compared to all these
Sure.
other content creators. Even though some of them do have like an energy drink, there's a really big energy drink from Logan Paul and KSI. They combined together, two big content creators. And
Yeah.
it's smart too, because it was US and the United Kingdom,
Oh, sure.
so they could get both. And it was really smart. And they're trying to I imagine they're either going to try to compete with Gatorade, which they already are doing really well at, or they're going to try to get bought out by like Coca-Cola or something and make a lot of money.
Sure. Yep.
But just because their face is on it, it's
Unbelievable.
out. And if it's at all a little different and unique,
Right.
it's going out the window. Like Mr. Beast, he hates that he doesn't want to feed children a bunch of sugar, right? But he has to give people something they want, because cheeseburgers and chocolate is going to sell a lot better than fruit and vegetables.
Exactly. Yep.
So, but he has like healthy ingredients with the chocolate. I think it's probably healthier than Hershey's.
Sure.
And it's also larger and more. If chocolate is better for you somehow, it is better than Hershey's.
Right.
What he's doing,
Right.
but it's just all these people are building companies and having clothes, and it really is a business, not
Right.
really. I can go on my computer and do whatever I want. You have to be really smart with what you post, and it's
Right.
it's a real big strategy game almost.
Exactly. That's a huge piece of it. And yeah, like you said, merchandise is where they make their money. Is like the couple YouTubers that the kids follow, they want their merchandise and that's what they sell. And it's a backpack, it's like a toy, it's all this stuff. That's where they're trying to make their money. So
Well, and with the podcast, I would love to be able to grow PodPaca to be larger than it
yeah.
currently is. If we can get to 1,000 YouTube subscribers, we get money off of ads. And
Oh,
that would
okay.
be huge because there is no Waupaca YouTube channel that is at 1,000 subscribers, at least that I know of, not even the city or anything like that.
Outside of our virtual rail fan site for the Waupaca Depot would.
That is true. Yeah, part of that big company with the virtual railway.
That's
That's
right.
true. But other than that, there's not people making ad revenue off of the YouTube videos. We won't for a very long time. Uh, and it's not that much. It's really not that much. But still, if we can make Wapaka media stronger than it currently is, especially with independent media like this, then it will only help Wapaka. Like we with 30 YouTube subscribers, I've already had people tell me, "Oh, I went to Wapaka because I listened to the podcast."
That's awesome. Yeah.
And if we have more, and if other people do their own thing, maybe someone wants to like all these kids are gonna want to do media of some way. And hopefully I hope the schools are realizing this
Yeah.
because it's gonna be huge. This is equivalent to wanting to become an athlete when I was a kid or going to space as an astronaut
Sure.
back maybe before I was maybe in the 90s space race. It's
Yep.
really equivalent to that kind of level of everyone's going to want to do this. And it is in some ways easy, but some ways very difficult as well.
I wanted to ask you too. I mean, because for those folks out there, I know Andy and Tracy pretty well. I consider them very good friends. But I've always been curious. You said you met in college.
Yeah.
Knowing Andy like I do, I can't imagine him at that age being terribly aggressive.
No, in
I
fact,
mean,
I did ask him out, Tim.
okay. Yeah, okay.
No, we met. So we both were journalism majors. So my initial plan in life was to be a sports journalist, and I was going to cover the Milwaukee Brewers, and I was going to do all this stuff. And but I started with sports journalism, but I've always loved history, so that was my other major. And so we met on the college newspaper, and Andy had a plan to be have a newspaper career as well. And so he was actually, by the time I met him, he was the editor of our college newspaper. So then I started out as just a sports writer, and then I was the sports editor and the copy editor, and yeah, it was fun. But so that's how we met, and then we had journalism classes together. And I have to say, I was first taught by him when he was wearing his Paul Molitor Brewers jersey in class, because nothing catches my attention like Brewers gear. So yeah, that's the first time I noticed him. And then we kind of knew each other casually. And then finally one day I just said, asked him if he wanted to go to lunch. So he's told this story. Yeah, this year he told this story in a sermon at church. You marry a pastor, you're pretty much going to get into many sermons. And my kids are starting to realize that too, that they're often the subject of sermons. But he told that story. And actually the funny part before that is I wasn't sure if he had a girlfriend. So I sent, this is like college stuff. I can't imagine that I did this, but I sent him like this fake survey, this fake Valentine's Day survey, asking him if he had a girlfriend. And I mean, just like, I can't even imagine. And he answered, no, he didn't have a girlfriend. That was my push to ask him out. And we went to lunch at A&W. So it was very fancy. And the rest is history.
Yeah, good root beer though.
See, I do and I like A&W, so that was fun. And then he ended up proposing during class, and we had the college newspaper was also kind of a class you took at UW Green Bay. So he proposed during class one day. So that was pretty exciting. Yeah.
You closed during class in front of everybody?
In front of everyone. Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can
and
see
I am an introvert for the most part. So that was a little shocking, but very sweet. So
well, that took some guts, because if you'd have just laughed at him and walked out, that would have been quite embarrassing.
He was pretty sure I was going to say yes. So it's a good thing. Yep. But we were engaged for 2 years, because then that was senior year. And then I went off to grad school in Milwaukee, and he was working at the Green Bay Press Gazette in Green Bay. So we kind of had our separate lives. So we traveled quite a bit at that time while I was in grad school living at home. And then he was up there in Green Bay. So
you did mention that Andy, your husband, mentions you and your family a lot in his sermons.
Yeah.
How do you feel about that? Do you like that attention?
Well, so when I was a kid, when I envisioned my husband in years to come, in my mind, and I'm serious about this, I envisioned I was either going to marry a journalist, because I knew I wanted to be a sports journalist, or a pastor. And the funniest part is I got kind of both, which is just weird and crazy. But so, I kind of knew what I was getting myself into. He does run things by me. So I do kind of know what he's going to talk about beforehand. Sometimes he does still surprise me. I'm not very crazy about him telling my whole life story, just because I'm kind of embarrassed. Especially the whole Valentine's Day quiz and all that. Not necessarily something I want the whole world to know, but he's very respectful about it. If I had my way, I wouldn't mind him not including me in his sermons, but that's not how it works. You kind of marry into it. So, it's not like I'm the only one. He uses our kids. He uses his dad and his mom and his uncle. His uncle's also a pastor. His dad is one of 3 boys. So they've got some great stories as kids. So we're all susceptible to to being subjects of his sermons at some point. So we get pretty used to it. But like I said, he's very good about asking me about it first. And so I'm not caught off guard.
Honestly, I think it would be foolish not to use his surroundings and what he sees and what he knows.
Well, if you know Andy at all, he takes pictures of everything. So he has a memory. He remembers everything. Yeah. So not only are his photographs part of his sermons, but so are all these memories. And almost every day, the boys will say something, or something will happen, and he'll say, yeah, I'm going to use that in a sermon. In fact, we were talking to his parents the other day on our way home, and he said, well, just so you know, I'm going to use that in a sermon. Is it okay? Because it'll just come to him, and it'll fit with what he's planning, and he knows he'll use it. And I know he keeps a running list of things and photos that he's like, yep, someday this is going to fit perfect in a sermon. So I think he's always looking for those pieces that'll fit in with a Bible verse, or with a subject he's trying to talk about with a sermon. And having seen a lot of sermons and gone to a lot of church services, I think people relate a lot to those everyday stories from life. I mean, we can all relate to that, whether they're humorous or they're touching. I mean, he's had stories about his grandma who just passed away last year, and she's 102, and there's so many fun, great stories with her. And they had such a great relationship. And so there's just things that throughout his life, and with his good memory, that he can just put right into a sermon. And oftentimes he'll ask me, okay, I've got this, here's the subject, or here's the verse. can you think of anything that we've done or that we've seen, especially like movies too, that would fit with that? And we'll think about it, and I'll throw out an idea. But yeah, friends, families, friends, anybody, you're really, you might be in a sermon, but he will always ask first.
Yeah. That's appreciative too.
Yeah.
So you don't get caught off guard.
Right. You don't want to show up on Sunday and all of a sudden you're like, okay, I'm the subject of this sermon today. But no, he won't surprise you like that.
It's one of those real fire and brimstone deals too.
Right. Exactly.
Like, what did I do?
Yeah, exactly. And he's like pointing at you from the pulpit. Yeah.
Yeah. Scowling.
Exactly. Yeah, that sounds just like him, doesn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah, it's a big scour. That one is. Yeah.
Yep. Just staring you down. Yep.
Oh. It's a good thing he's thick-skinned too. He may not appreciate us making fun of him on a national podcast.
Oh, I'll tell you. No, this is nothing I wouldn't say to him. I mean, he knows, after he did that sermon last month, I think it was last month or 2 months ago, about how we met and stuff. I'm like, I kind of knew, but I didn't know like he was telling like the full story and like all the details. And it's fine. It is what it is. Like I said, you kind of marry into the whole thing. And with my father-in-law being a pastor, I've seen it. I know how it works. And Andy's style of preaching in many ways is very similar to his dad's. So, and like I said, I appreciate the fact that he uses real life stories, things that we all go through that can relate to the Bible passages and things that.
It just makes the sermon real.
Yeah.
You can't just go up there and start reading out of the Old Testament. I mean, I don't think. I mean, first of all, I would get bored and leave. But,
Right.
Let's talk a little bit about the capital campaign and what kind of improvements do you need, and more importantly, why they need to be done.
Yeah. So we did a strategic plan last year, which is always fun with the board. And
that was a good time.
it's not. I found it fun because it really gives you direction, especially with our organization. We'd never done that. So kind of was starting to lay out, okay, what do we want to do in the next few years? And during the pandemic, during that quiet, the quieter time for us, that was a great thing for us to kind of focus on. But we realized that we have all these great ideas, all these great things we'd like to see done or things that need to get done. But that with that comes that we need money for that. And, we do a lot of fundraising. We mentioned the brat fries. We do, fundraising drives, membership drives, the Yuletide Trail cookie tins. They're a great fundraiser for us. But some of these projects were going to take quite a bit of money. We really felt like this was the time to do a capital campaign because 2023 will be our 70th anniversary. So we thought it really worked well because we'll be celebrating that. And we've never done a capital campaign before. So everything we've done in the past, purchasing the Holly Center here, the Carnegie Library, it's named the Holly Center because the Holly family helped us purchase it initially and gave us a loan for that money. So that's the Holly Funeral Home family. And they were really integral in the early years of the Historical Society. The depot, that's all been fundraised. So, but there were all these, with having historic buildings, there's so many projects. And just when you think you finish one project, there's another project. So the biggest project that we had and we knew was going to be a big one was the roof on this building here at the Holly Center. After doing research, we realized we've had the same roof for 35, 40 years. It was leaking. And when our mission is to preserve our local history and we've got a leaking building, that's the priority, is to get that new roof, not only to preserve this piece of history, this building itself, but everything that's inside. So that was kind of the impetus. And then from there, like I said, we had all these great projects. And as we've grown as an organization, there's things we want to accomplish too that do require some funding to get things going. So for example, digitizing our collections. We need help doing that. We need supplies and technology to do that stuff. So that was all stuff we wanted to raise money toward. We just purchased new property kind of over by the depot. And that's an open space. Actually, years ago, used to be a potato warehouse on that property. It's now just empty land. But our plan is to build a building there because we get offered a lot of big implements, wagons, agricultural implements, farming things. So we needed a building to put those in. So we bought the land with the idea that eventually we'll build the building. So that was part of the capital campaign too. So all these projects were kind of coming together, and we realized the capital campaign could really help us accomplish a lot of our goals and fit so well in our mission of preserving Waupaca and Chain of Lakes history. So we launched it in June, and we're a quarter of the way there. We've gotten one project done, which is the roof on the building here at the Holly Center. And that was a fun project because we were able to actually go lighter on the shingles to look more like it did in 1914 when it was built. So that's exciting for us to really not only do a project today, but also to keep in mind our history and to kind of remedy something that, they went with a darker shingle. It didn't quite look like it used to. So we're trying to keep that in mind as well. And then we're in the midst of the second project. We got a grant from the Waupaca Area Community Foundation to install a hearing loop in the lower level here at the Holly Center. So since we do those monthly programs, we do get a few comments every now and then about it's just hard to hear in there. The voices don't carry always in that room. So we really wanted to make it available to people with a hearing impairment. So that hearing loop will hook right into people's hearing aids. And then also we'll update the audio system too while we're at it. And new flooring, new tables and chairs, all sorts of stuff down there. So that's an exciting project. And that will start next month and hopefully be done before Christmas. And so that's the second project. But the capital campaign involves projects at each building. And that was important to us too, is because that shows that all these buildings are part of the Waupaca Historical Society, and they all tell a different story of Waupaca history and Chain of Lakes history. And so we're excited that just to be able to do this. So the next big project that is right on the top of our list is a new HVAC system at the Hutchison House, which is not a glamorous project, but is something so important to that building, not only to preserve the building itself, but then everything that's stored inside needs to be temperature and humidity controlled. And there's a lot that goes into that. And so that's next on the list. And these three first projects are very expensive. So we've been so thankful to the community, to local businesses, to the grants that we've gotten, that we've been able to start these projects. And hopefully we'll continue being able to finish some of these capital campaign projects. And then the capital campaign itself will end in April. In April 2023 is our 70th anniversary. So then we'll have a big celebration, hopefully, to celebrate the money we've been able to raise and the community support, and just be excited about what our future will bring to the Historical Society.
Have you given any thought to expanding that a little bit? Maybe not April, but maybe through maybe another year to give it more time to mature, or more time for people to get the idea?
Yeah, we've had a few gifts that are over a couple of years. So I think no matter what, it will be in a way. But yeah, I definitely think that could happen. These projects are so important. I mean, they're important to our organization, obviously, but we really feel they're important to our community. The hearing loop downstairs really opens up the room for people who can't find a space that has access to the hearing loop. We don't charge a lot for the building. We just really welcome, especially nonprofit organizations, to use our room for free. And so that's something we really wanted to improve on. But all these capital campaign projects really are part of not only preserving our local history, but also making sure that they're around for our community to enjoy for years to come. So I think if we have to extend it past April, then April will be a celebration of what we've done so far, and excitement for the next 70 years of the Waupaca Historical Society and accomplishing those projects.
Well, my 2 cents on the subject is you're absolutely right. I mean, the roof is a good example because it's probably needed to be replaced several years ago.
Yeah.
And you just keep putting Band-Aids on stuff and not fixing them properly. And you potentially could end up spending a heck of a lot more money.
Exactly.
And, it's just like, you need to preserve, like you said, history, but stuff does need to be replaced, not just fixed, like heating and cooling systems.
Right.
And there is a shelf life with that. So hopefully people understand, I mean, in this area, and I do believe they do, that this is their history.
Right.
Yeah. And it's very important. And if it's not taken care of, it will be lost.
Right.
So
exactly. Yeah, we definitely see ourselves as the caretakers of these buildings. Yes, we own them, But we really are taking care of them for the future. I'm not going to be around forever. Our board's not going to be around forever, but hopefully these buildings will be around for many, many years to come. And so will the collections. And hopefully by raising the money for these projects, that's ensuring that that stuff will be around. And people will learn from the objects we collected and from the exhibits we created and the buildings we preserved. It's a neat thing to be a part of. Yes, it's a lot of work running a capital campaign and really trying to push that fundraising and our goals, but it's exciting too to see the changes, to think where we were even 20 years ago as a historical society. We didn't have the we didn't have the depot yet. We were just 2 sites. I mean, just the way we've grown, that all takes funds too. And we want to make sure that this stuff's around for many generations to come.
Yeah, and I realize more than most that there's a lot of groups and organizations out there that need money as well. And I get that. I understand it. And we do need to pick and choose, what we dedicate our resources to. But, basically, I know it's called the Historical Society, but you're taking care of the future. 200 years from now, I just think it would be very, very cool if somebody's researching Waupaca and has a place to do that. But mainly a good portion of that's because of what the people of Waupaca have done today to preserve it. So
exactly. Yep. Well, and what people have done, look, the Historical Society being formed in 1953, that people saw the need for that to preserve our local history and started to collect that stuff before it all went away. Because if you think about it, Waupaca was just over 100 years old at that time, or the white settled city of Waupaca. We were just over 100 years old and we were already losing stuff from that history. So it was important for them to have been formed at that time. It's even more important for us to continue to collect that history, not only the actual physical objects, but also the information. I mean, information changes too. The way we perceive things or the way we understand our history changes. And it's important to document that as well, both the way we used to think and the way we're thinking now. And I think that's also important. And two, as we go into the, 2022 and beyond, digitizing and making things available online, that doesn't get any easier for a small historical society like us. We're already steps behind because we're not a big organization, but it's still so important. And people expect that. They expect to be able to go to your website or call you and say, hey, can you send me this, this, and this? Well, we want the resources to be able to do that. And it also preserves a lot of those items too, if we have digital copies of them. So there's just things too that not only are preserving the history, like you said, but also for the future, we're stepping into the future in a way and doing things that'll preserve them in new ways. And that's important.
Well, I stop in some of the historical societies when I travel, and a lot of them are digitized. You can pull up anything, and it's just it's pretty cool. And I'm amazed at some of the buildings some of these historical societies are in, like really old banks and things like that, and
right,
floors, and I don't know, this is kind of cool. Ours is really cool too. It's the buildings. It's a Carnegie, I believe.
Yep. Yeah. Yeah. The 2 women's clubs here in Waupaca at the time applied for a grant through the Carnegie Foundation and got it. And that's why this building's here today. And the library was originally downtown on South Main Street, up above on the 2nd floor, but they needed more space. And then that's why eventually they built the library we have today in 93, because they ran out of space in this building too. Mm-hmm. They just didn't, it's just the library. And we know that our library here in Waupaca is fantastic. And we're so lucky to have it. And to think that they were crammed in this building here, this Carnegie Library, is crazy. We're already feeling like, oh, you can see all this stuff behind me. All the stuff we have in here is just to think that the library had all these books and things in this building. And they just outgrew it. But we're so lucky to be in here as the Historical Society because it's a fantastic building. Recently, the library's given us some things back that were here originally in 1914 when they built it. So it's neat to have those pieces of history back too. And it's a fantastic building.
Something I've been thinking about as far as podcasts goes with PodPaca here is that I don't know how much videotapes you have from the past of the people from Waupaca before. I know you have plenty of photos, but do you have many videos?
Yeah. So well, that's the other thing about historical studies is we have all this old media, stuff. So we have stuff on reels, we have stuff on slides, we have stuff on VHS tapes and CDs now. Even it's to the point where that stuff will last, but only so long. So we have to start finding ways to save that stuff. But yeah, we do. We probably my favorite thing that we have is a video that was taken in 1938. We sell it here in our gift shop. And when my kids were younger, it was one of their favorite things to watch. So there's no sound outside of the fact that we put music to it. But it's just someone had a camera and they walked up and down Main Street real slowly, and people are waving at the camera, but you can see all the businesses, what's in each building. And then there's some out on the chain of lakes too, in other parts of the area too. But the downtown, it's just neat to me just to see it alive. And I have to say that when I first moved here and I watched that video, I was like, wow, look at all the people just walking downtown. You just don't, at that time, 12 years ago, I don't feel like that wasn't really the case downtown anymore. It was quieter. I do feel like in the last, 5-6 years, that's changed, that the people are downtown. An event like we're having today, Halloween on Main, just a fantastic way of getting people downtown to just walk the streets, stop in at businesses. But that video from 1938 is just so fun. And I think the library has it too, that you can check it out. So if anybody wants to check out the DVD, you can watch it at home. But just gives you a really neat glimpse of Waupaca at that time. But then for us historically, it's fantastic because you can see all the businesses, see what was in each building. Even, you see the neat thing too, Mike Kirk, we've mentioned a couple times, he went through that video because he grew up here. And he, along with some help from other people in the community, wrote down every person and place in that video on a sheet. So we have that. And there's maybe only a few holes. And it seems like every time we show that movie, someone else says, hey, I know that person. I see you have it down as a question mark. That's so-and-so. So, but it's so fun because then now you have this kind of script in a way, and you can tell who everybody is and what business it was. And yeah, it's just a neat piece of history. So yeah, we have that. That's probably our most famous one. But we have some film reels of the 1957 celebration, the centennial celebration. We have VHS tapes. We have DVDs. We have cassette tapes. I mean, all this stuff. So with digitization comes taking that stuff and making it digitized too, so that we have it for years to come. Luckily, that 1938 video, we do have that, digitized and everything. But so many historical studies like us have that stuff. And if you don't have the resources to bring that into the 21st century, it just sits. And you hope that doesn't degrade, but some of those materials, they weren't meant to last 50, 60, 70 years. So you try to get that stuff digitized so that in case something does happen, you have copies of it.
It's really cool that you have videos of the events. And with the podcast, I don't know how many videos you have where you get to know more of the people in the town. But I am really hoping, we are trying to get people to learn more of not only about our area, but about the people. We're really focusing on the people in our area with this podcast. And I'm hoping that with the video and audio available in the future, that, when like 30, 40 years from now, people can be like, oh, this is what people were like right after the COVID pandemic in the 2020s. This is what people did before then. Oh, here's some great info from these
Right.
people that are living here in the 70s and 80s and stuff like that. There's a lot of history, I think, that'll be from this podcast. And I know it'll be on YouTube, but it'd be awesome to make sure that this can be available in many decades from now as well.
Yeah. I think sometimes too, historical study, you kind of think of old stuff, and part of our mission is actually to preserve things that are happening right now. And so, for example, Weasel's just closed a few weeks ago. They're going to donate a menu from the restaurant. So that's current history, but it's so important to preserve. Even like business souvenirs is something that I think of a lot, is a great way to just capture time, whether it be pencils or bookmarks or advertisements or whatever it is from local businesses that gives you a picture in time. And it's so important to preserve, like you said, things that are happening now. So, because in 30, 40 years, that's going to seem old. And it's important to document that. So especially now with the pandemic, that's been important. In fact, during the pandemic, we've received so many donations of objects because people had the time to clean their homes, go through things, and we've had some fantastic donations of things that we don't have in our collection. For example, a Lakeman jersey, so Waupaca Lakeman baseball team. We don't have a letter jacket from the Waupaca High School. It's just things like that that people thought, hey, I don't need this anymore. And luckily they thought of us. But making sure to preserve that recent stuff, that stuff that's even happening like right now as we speak, like you said, podcasts that are going on, because it's going to tell a story. One of the things we got in the last year was a stack of newspapers. And we don't often keep newspapers because they don't preserve well. And we also have them on microfilm when it's Waupaca newspapers. But one of the newspapers I did keep in that collection was one from 1918 during that pandemic. And it was just fascinating to read about Waupaca in that pandemic. And it was right around the holidays when I was reading it. And in this article from 1918, it was saying Christmas services at Waupaca churches have been canceled. And it had all sorts of health advisories and things like that. So it's just neat to look back. And you know what? We probably would have brushed past that had this pandemic not happened. So it's important to look back and realize that those things, that was what was important at that time and was affecting, at that point, the whole country. So that was kind of a neat thing that came in during our pandemic now.
Real quick, if somebody is kind enough to donate to the capital campaign, where can they go to do that?
So there's a couple ways. So you can go to our website and you can donate right online through PayPal. And that works great. Otherwise, you can mail a check to us. And you can mail that to the Waupaca Historical Society at 321 South Main Street. And or you can stop in and drop it off, and I can talk to you and thank you in person for donating to the capital campaign. And we have our wonderful library drop box still in the front of the building. So some people they'll just come right up. We're not open, as much as we'd love to be. We'd love to be open every day. But we're open Wednesday through Friday, 10 to 2. And some people come when we're not open and they'll drop their check right in that old library drop right to the right of the front door. So, so there's all sorts of ways. But from the convenience of your own home, you can donate online and that'll go directly to the capital campaign.
Cool. Yeah, it would be really, it would be really helpful. We need to really preserve this stuff and have nice facilities for people to come into. No leaky roofs,
Yeah, exactly.
No 25, 30, 40-year-old mechanicals, furnaces, anything like that.
Yeah, there's some things in our buildings that should be old, but those are things that should not be. Yeah. So yeah. Well, and our buildings are more than just for our community too, because we get so many visitors and so many people that don't live in Waupaca have such a connection to Waupaca. And it's just fascinating to me to talk to people that, they're from Illinois or Chicago area, or they're from around the country. And Waupaca has a special place in their heart. So being able to preserve this history for them is important too, especially a building like this one at the Holly Center, because so many people remember, even if you were a vacationer or coming up for the summer, you still went to the library. So the fact that you walk in and it still smells like the library and it still looks like the library in some aspects, that's such a neat thing. And so I think those are things that people come back to. And also people come back to museums and historic homes and things like that. So it's important for us to preserve those for our visitors and our community. Hopefully for years to come.
I'd like the viewers to know as well. I mean, Joe and I, we don't promote charities and stuff on the show, but this is a promotion of Waupaca and the wonderful people in Waupaca and why we think people should come visit. And this is Waupaca history. So that's why we're promoting the capital campaign and donations to the Historical Society.
Yeah.
It is Waupaca. So
it is. Yeah. And we appreciate that. And we know, we're part of that Waupaca Arts and Culture Network. We're all nonprofits that are a part of that outside of a couple businesses here and there. So we all understand that, we're all looking for donations and we're all fundraising. And the great thing is that a network like that has offered us the opportunity to all work together. So your dollars can go a little further because we're partnering with other organizations and we're finding ways to collaborate in ways that we didn't, I would say 10 or 15 years ago. So that's exciting too, is that when we have projects, we're working with other organizations as well.
And I will say too, from past experience, as we talked about the cookie walk and the tins earlier, if you're listening to this, you might want to get your tin earlier than later. They tend to sell very, very quickly. You can pick the tins up where? The Historical Society and where else?
So you can buy one here. You can buy one at the Chamber of Commerce, which is right next door to us. You can buy one at Community First Credit Union. They're our sponsors for the tins. So you can buy one there. You can buy one at Northern Home.
Okay.
And then the day of, if I have any left, I will be outside the library that day under a tent in my winter gear selling the rest of the tins. So we have 168 tins. So when they're gone, they're gone. But you can kind of see that red one in the background here. That one is the one from the 2020 when we put everything in the bucket. So that was the one from 2020. But they're big. I don't know. They're big cookie tins.
Yeah.
And then the top has a picture printed on it in black and white. And this year is a picture of the old Waupaca trolley going through snow.
Oh, okay.
It's a super cool picture. So each year we have a different picture, and it's always a photograph out of our collection. So
yeah, collectibles people, there you go.
Yeah, exactly. Or you can gift them with the cookies inside. It's an even better Christmas gift. So
It's starting to sound like an infomercial.
Yeah.
What day is the Yuletide Trail again? At what time?
So, yeah, Yuletide Trail is Saturday, December 3rd, and it's from 10 to 4.
Thank you, Tracy, for coming on to PodPaca today. Make sure to support the Waupaca Historical Society capital campaign and to go to the Yuletide Trail event and get your cookie tin. And that is coming up this December 3rd.
Yep. Yeah, thanks for having me, Joe.